The history of colored neighborhoods in South Africa is deeply intertwined with the country's complex and painful history of racial segregation and apartheid. To understand the story, it is essential to provide some historical context. In the 17th century, South Africa became a strategic pit stop for the Dutch East India Company, a major player in the spice trade. The Dutch, seeking to establish a refreshment station for their ships, brought in settlers and slaves from places as varied as Indonesia, India, and Madagascar. This mingling of diverse cultures and races laid the foundation for what would eventually become the colored community. As the Dutch established their colony, they inevitably intermingled with the indigenous Khoisan people. These unions, both consensual and forced, resulted in a population that was neither wholly African nor European but a mix of both. This group, initially referred to as bastards or half-castes, would later come to be known as colored. But the Dutch were not the only European power interested in the riches of South Africa. In the 19th century, the British, attracted by the prospect of fertile lands and mineral resources, seized control. This shift in power exacerbated the complexity of the racial dynamics in the region. The British brought with them a rigid racial hierarchy, further complicating the identity of the colored community. Under British rule, the colored community was caught in a racial limbo, not quite fitting into the neat categories of black and white. However, despite this ambiguity, the colored community thrived, developing a distinct culture that was a fusion of their diverse roots. The colonial period, thus, sowed the seeds of a new racial identity, the colored people, a legacy that still holds relevance today. It was a time of exploration, exploitation, and evolution, and it left an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of South Africa. The colored community, born out of this tumultuous period, would go on to play a significant role in the unfolding story of South Africa. With the advent of the 20th century, the colored community found themselves caught in a web of racial segregation. The 20th century marked a dark period in South Africa's history. A system known as apartheid was introduced. It was a policy of state-sanctioned racial segregation and discrimination that deeply impacted the colored community. At the heart of this system was the Population Registration Act. This act classified South Africans into different racial groups: Bantu, Black Africans, whites, colored, mixed race, and Asians. The colored community, a diverse blend of ethnic backgrounds, found themselves caught in the middle, neither fully accepted by the whites nor the blacks. This racial categorization led to a slew of discriminatory laws that further marginalized the colored community. Among these was the Group Areas Act, which led to forced removals. Colored families were uprooted from their homes and relocated to racially segregated areas, often far from their workplaces and with inadequate facilities. One famous example of a colored neighborhood during this period was Sophiatown, a vibrant and culturally diverse area near Johannesburg. In the 1950s, the apartheid government forcibly removed residents from Sophiatown to make way for white residents, leading to widespread protests and a significant cultural loss. The apartheid regime also imposed restrictions on education, employment, and social interactions. Colored individuals were often relegated to lower-paying jobs, their access to quality education was limited, and their movements were strictly controlled. But the colored community was not passive victims in this. They showed great resilience and resistance. They fought against the oppressive system in various ways. Some joined political movements and trade unions, others used music, art, and literature to voice their defiance. Their struggle was a testament to their courage and determination. The apartheid era was a time of immense suffering, but it was also a time of solidarity and resistance for the colored community. They faced adversity with courage, their spirit buoyed by a collective sense of identity and purpose. They were a community bound together not just by shared suffering but also by shared resilience and determination to overcome. Apartheid officially ended in 1994 with the election of Nelson Mandela as South Africa's first black president. After apartheid's demise, the government embarked on a process of dismantling the apartheid-era laws, including those related to residential segregation. The colored community, primarily consisting of people of mixed racial heritage, had long been subjected to apartheid's racial segregation policies. They faced discrimination, forced removals, and limited opportunities during the apartheid era. The post-apartheid era was marked by a spirit of reconciliation and forgiveness. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, chaired by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, aimed to address the crimes and injustices of apartheid. Many colored South Africans participated in the TRC process, sharing their stories and seeking closure. South Africa adopted a progressive constitution in 1996 that enshrined the principles of equality, non-discrimination, and protection of human rights. This constitution ensured that the rights of all citizens, including the colored community, were protected under the law. However, the legacy of forced removals and the Group Areas Act continued to affect the colored community's access to housing and land. Land restitution and housing programs aim to address these historical injustices, but progress has been slow. Access to quality education remained a challenge for many colored students, especially in historically disadvantaged areas. Efforts were made to improve the education system and promote access to higher education. The post-apartheid era saw efforts to empower marginalized communities economically. Government initiatives and programs aimed to promote entrepreneurship and job creation among the colored community. The colored community actively worked to preserve their unique cultural heritage and identity while embracing the broader South African identity. Festivals, language preservation, and cultural celebrations continued to thrive. Despite the obstacles, the colored community has made significant contributions to South African society. Their influence is evident in various fields, from politics to arts, sports, and beyond. Political figures like Trevor Manuel and Patricia de Lille have made lasting impacts in shaping the nation's policies. On the cultural front, the colored community has enriched South African arts with their unique blend of influences. Musicians like the late Brenda Fassie and authors like Alex Laguma have left indelible marks on the South African cultural landscape. In the realm of sports, athletes like Ashwin Willemse have shattered stereotypes and risen to the top of their fields, inspiring a new generation of colored athletes. Beyond individual accomplishments, community initiatives and organizations tirelessly work to address challenges faced by the colored community. These include efforts towards poverty alleviation, education, and fighting discrimination. The journey of the colored community in South Africa is a testament to resilience, determination, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. Today, South Africa is a democracy with a commitment to equality and non-discrimination. While racial divisions still exist, there have been efforts to address the historical injustices of apartheid and promote integration and social cohesion. Colored neighborhoods continue to exist, but the legal framework that enforced racial segregation has been dismantled, allowing for greater mobility and choice in housing and residence. However, the legacy of apartheid continues to shape many aspects of South African society and politics.